Each week on Culinary Confidential, Christina Cates, a seasoned foodie who has worked at some of New York City's top restaurants, will share her passion for the culinary world. Whether you're a professional chef, a restaurant enthusiast, or a lover of good food, Christina dives into the heart of hospitality, exploring the trends, triumphs, and challenges facing the food service profession. And you won't want to miss her chats with some of the most interesting and influential industry voices. And now, please take your seat at the table as Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates starts now, exclusively on AM 970. The Answer.
Welcome to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates. This show is produced in association with my dear friend, Lucas A. Ferrara. I'm doing another themed series on the show for the next few weeks. Kind of similar to what I did in the beginning of the year with the beverage series, only this time it will shine a spotlight on a featured chef with their journey through their career. Kicking off the series is Chef Jamie Knott. Now, Jamie isn't someone that I actually know. I've had a lot of guests on the show or people that I know through the industry, but Jamie and I have never met until tonight. And he's someone that I feel like I should know because we have just a ton of people in common. So as I've been working on the show, people have repeatedly reached out to me and said, when are you going to have Jamie on the show? When are you going to have Jamie on the show? So finally, someone formally introduced me to him. So I have to give a big thank you to my favorite couple, Pete and Danielle Wilson. Jamie Knott embarked on his hospitality journey at the age of 13, progressing from busboy to cook. After graduating from the New York Restaurant School, he completed an internship at Café Centro, a distinguished 2-star French-Moroccan bistro located above Grand Central Station, which significantly influenced his early career. Jamie has worked in reputable places in both New York City and New Jersey, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But currently, he's building his own empire across the Hudson River in New Jersey. Now, let's take a ride on the Chef Jamie Knott timeline of success. We'll start in 2013 when Jamie acquired the famed Saddle River Inn, which under his leadership was given a prestigious 4-star rating by the New York Times. Then in 2016, Jamie, alongside his partner Robert Palmer, launched Cellar 335 in Jersey City, a progressive American restaurant infused with Asian influences that quickly became a local favorite. In 2018, Jamie opens up the Saddle River Cafe, which is perfectly situated across the river from his fine dining establishment and first venture, the Saddle River Inn. Now, in 2022, Jamie and his team revitalized Madame Claude, renaming it simply Madame, and made it into a modern bistro and cocktail parlor. And believe me, he's not done yet. There are more things on the horizon for Chef Jamie Knott, but without further ado, let me please welcome Jamie Knott to Culinary Confidential. I am beyond ecstatic. We are finally getting together to do this show.
Thank you so much for having me, Christina. I wanted to laugh 10 or 15 times during that intro because, I don't know, I think it's a little hard for me to hear, A, what I've accomplished, B, that I'm anybody or, you know, who I want to be or on my way to getting there, and C, you know, when you started reading my bio a little bit, it's like you mentioned 13 and then I graduated culinary school. If you only knew the things that transpired in between those 6 years.
Well, those are the things I want to talk about. And listen, this is not the time for humble pie. You've done a lot in your career. And listen, you're a young guy still.
Well, there's a reason for my humility, and that's because I've been humbled a lot in my life. First and foremost, I come from humble beginnings. And secondly, I don't think I've even scratched the surface yet on what I am, who I'm meant to be, and where I'm going to go. So for those reasons, not because I don't love myself or think I'm fully capable or realize what I've done thus far in my life. It's just because I can't wait to see what's next.
I love it. I usually prepare a slew of questions for guests that I have on the show, and I really have not done that because the couple times I've talked to you on the show, I mean, we've had such organic conversation. I was like, I feel like this is just going to go wherever it's supposed to go. So
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. But I do want to talk about the early Jamie Knott, the early times, the early days in your career. You started out when you were very young at the Franklin Steakhouse in New Jersey because you are, as you've said, in quotes, just a Nutley boy.
Well, sometimes...
Hey, Martha Stewart came from Nutley, New Jersey.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And everybody knows a lot more about her now after they watched that show on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty wild. But, yeah, Martha basically grew up 3 houses from where I live now on Satterway. Yeah.
I'm sure she's been to the Franklin Steakhouse a few times.
I don't know that she ever came back from Nutley once she left.
Yeah.
You saw what a powerhouse she was. And,
That's right.
She was definitely a tough cookie.
Yeah.
I mean, they portrayed her as such. I don't know if she had to sign off on any of that or they asked her for, specific facts or details, but definitely an interesting show. And Nutley's an interesting place to grow up, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right across the river.
You grew up in Rutherford?
Well, I grew up in North Arlington, which,
okay.
Across from Nutley.
So what did you know about Nutley when you were growing up?
I mean, nothing. I stayed on my side of the river.
As well you should.
Yeah. But you had good restaurants in town, which North Arlington did not. So, I mean, Nutley was definitely known for that. There was a bustling dining scene. But let's talk about those.
Bustling's funny. Yeah. Well,
bustling for New Jersey.
Amen to that. I mean, the Franklin Steakhouse the place was busy every
How old were
day.
you when you worked there?
I started when I was 12.
And you were washing dishes? Busboy?
I was a busboy.
Okay.
I was a busboy, then I was a food runner.
I love a food runner.
And then I was a bar back, which got me in trouble. I'll get to that later. And then we used to watch the parking lot on Saturdays or Sundays, depending.
The valet?
Yeah.
Could you even see over the steering wheel?
Listen,
Didn't matter.
Nutley, everybody in town, and
Exactly.
they know you. And some guys are cooler than others,
Yeah.
And they want a reason to throw you $10. But a lot of people would just bring me food on the way out, filet tips or a sirloin, whatever it was. So
the good old days.
Yeah, the good old days for sure. But I would get good and high and eat as much food as was handed to me throughout the whole evening.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
that's like a dream job for a child.
Listen, as I became 13 and 14, yeah, it was a dream job. I don't think I smoked before 13. I hope I didn't.
Yeah, I hope you didn't too.
For, my kids might hear this at some point.
Right.
And 2 of them are past that age already. So
gosh. Okay.
I think we're in the
pivot
clear.
then.
No, I think we're in the clear, and I think they know that, I was different, a little rough and tumble. Mm-hmm. My kids are pretty much nothing like that, which is a blessing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They're good kids. Don't get me wrong, they're headstrong and
boys or girls?
I have girl, boy, girl. Jaden is 16, Brandon's 14, and Brooklyn is 12.
Wow.
Yeah. They're funny to watch interact. We were eating Chinese takeout yesterday for dinner, and just to hear them bust on each other is really it's fun. It's special. I'm going to tell you a little quick anecdote. We have a digital calendar on the in the kitchen on the counter, and nobody has anything lined up for the day, but Jaden has these notes, reminders, which my other 2 kids put in, and they're like, don't be late for school, big back. Watch what you eat tomorrow. Like, really,
Oh my gosh.
So I went in and erased them all, and Jaden's like, what are you doing? Those are ammo if I ever need to get the kids in trouble. She calls them the kids. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, that's not good. That's not cool. Because my brother used to do the same thing to me when I was a kid, and I know it bothered me.
Yeah.
It's still to this day, I look in the mirror, I'm like, that's not what I want.
Aww.
That's not what I'm looking for. But
were you the younger brother?
Yes.
Yeah.
My older brother, Eric, is 2 years and 2 months older.
I have 2
Obviously.
boys, so I get the brother dynamic. And they're just starting. They're 5 and 8, so they're just starting to, have that banter, that brotherly, back and forth.
Yeah, brotherly love.
Yeah, brotherly love.
If that's what you want to call it.
All right, let's talk about culinary school. You went to the New York Restaurant School, and we talked about this off air.
We did.
I went to the Art Institute of New York, which it was the New York Restaurant School, and then it rolled into
because you're
AIA.
younger than me.
Not by much, just by 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it happened right after we graduated.
Yeah.
AI bought the school, right?
Yes,
Art
that's
Institute.
correct.
Yeah.
So talk to me about those years, that journey, because that's what helped you make your bones in the industry.
It was quite a journey indeed. I didn't have great attendance.
Really?
Because, I know that's surprising. It was actually something I enjoyed, but attendance was always a challenge for me.
Okay.
And tardiness, as you're really well aware of after today's escapade.
Just a few minutes late tonight. No big deal.
I forgot, what downtown New York was like.
Yep.
But I'm typically 17 minutes late to everything I do. I don't know why.
Okay, well, noted.
Actually,
now I know.
I do know why, and I don't want to throw my mom under the bus.
Okay.
But she had 2 jobs when we were kids, and we went to a private school. And we had church every day. That's where we met, our class. So I would walk in ashamed every day, 15 minutes late, with my head down, like God was shunning me, And I remember that. Obviously, it's etched into my spirit, into my soul at this point in my life. But the point of the matter is that I never really looked at the clock like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a social construct that somebody else created that I'm not really paying much attention to, which is kind of ironic because in the kitchen, it's 3 minutes. Yes, chef. Like,
wow.
Everything's 3 or 4 minutes. That's just what it is.
Wow.
I'm speaking
Okay.
specifically about the Saddle River Inn, but all the pickups are 3 or 4 minutes.
Right.
And that's what it is. When the runner calls or the expo says, chef, fire 23, 11, and 14, you're like, okay.
All right,
you
so
look
let's
at the
talk,
next cook and you say, 3 minutes. Yes, chef.
Then let's talk about how you're running your kitchen. So you run it very tight.
Well, everything for me is cooked on a timer. Like all the food is basically ready to be plated or as close to possible, unless it's fish, which is cooked a la minute. But meat is brought, right up to temperature or just under temperature, right? And then it's 3 minutes on the pick. Just make it hot. Entremet plates the veg or the starch or whatever it is, and then the expo will plate the butter on the side or on top, and then we send it.
All right, so as long as you're on time in your kitchen, then we can be a little bit more flexible on the show. If you need to be late anywhere, you can be late here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your grace.
All right, so let's talk about the kitchen environment, because kitchens are notorious for being high-pressure environments, tough chefs. They can sometimes throw a plate at your head. It's true. Not so much in this day and age.
No, those
but
days
what was
are
the
long
kitchen
gone.
atmosphere like that you grew up in when you were working under chefs?
It was different. I had some sous chefs that I hated and probably still hate. But, the chefs were harder. So Frank Delatrain was the chef at Cafe Centro, my first real chef. And it was challenging because he was born in France and grew up in Italy and spoke 4 languages. So he had this really odd accent, and he always spoke into a microphone. Cafe Centro is a big restaurant. There's about 240 seats, and it's an open kitchen. So he would just be yelling into the microphone. And 90% of the time, if it was dinner service, it was at me.
Right.
I was a kid. I only knew what I knew. And coming up in the Franklin Steakhouse, and then I later moved over to Scuttlebutts, I learned how to, make mashed potatoes and, chicken cordon bleu, stuffed and wrapped. But, that was the limit of my culinary expertise at that point. So coming
Everyone
in,
starts somewhere.
Yeah, you have to. If you don't start, you can't begin, you can't win. So my sous chef there was Ron True. He used to throw my mise en place out. If my chives weren't right, he would just brush them into the garbage. Ooh. Now, I don't do things like that today because number one, it could be used for family meal. Number two, it could be used in herb oil.
Yeah, the food costs. Why would you throw food away?
Yes, and food obviously is substantially more expensive now than it was, right, when I was coming up. I mean, look at eggs. It's silly. How many egg memes are on the internet right now?
Millions.
It's wild. But beef, all dairy, everything's just gone through the roof. I don't know if there's ever going to be a stop or a pause or even a relief.
Or a reverse.
Is that possible?
I don't think so.
It's like taxes, right? They say, they might go down next year. I haven't seen
happening.
it. No, I haven't seen it. I've been in my house for 9 years now. They haven't gone down. Not that I'm aware of.
Right. Okay, who were some mentors early in your career?
Well, Frank, I just mentioned for sure. I mean, the guy was...
Even though he was tough, he was...
Yeah, but tough is not always bad.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes a while for that to kick in, and then you look back on it and you say, those are lifelong lessons that I get to take with me forever.
Correct.
And just the way he cooked and thought about food and laid out his mise en place, he was just a super thoughtful chef and very well-rounded. So he definitely was one of them. And Michael Fitzsimmons was one of them. So I want to back up for a second. I was 15. It was St. Patrick's Day, and I was a bar back at this time, and I'm Irish. My friends call me James. My name is James Patrick. I mean, so we were taking shots behind the bar because, that's what a 15-year-old at work does on St. Patrick's Day.
Totally.
Apparently not. Apparently I was wrong. And the owner, Johnny Maggs at the time, was dating a bartender, Lisa, and I had no idea. So she saw me take shots. She didn't see who gave it to me, so she told John. John pulled me into the office, and he's like, dude, why? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm Irish. It's St. Patrick's Day.
Everyone's Irish on St. Patrick's
He's
Day.
like, I'll lose my liquor license. Everybody here will be out of a job. Who gave you the shots? I'm like, I can't do that. That's not the way I was brought up.
Snitches get stitches in New Jersey.
Yeah, especially in Nutley.
Yeah.
Paulie Walnuts lives in
Exactly.
Nutley. Little quick side note. But I said, I can't do that. this person's not as young as I am. I can get another job tomorrow.
Right.
He's like,
Good for you.
He's like, then I got to let you go. And I was like devastated. It sucked. I love that job. I mean, it's closed now, so I can tell you, we got paid all cash. It was $10 an hour plus tips.
Yeah.
And at 13, 14 years old,
you were the king.
I mean, I had new sneakers every day and weed in my pocket at all
gosh.
times. I got to be honest. But, so it kind of went like that. But then, so back to my point, Michael Fitzsimmons owned Scuttlebutts on Center Street in Nutley with his family. And they were just sweet, sweet people, like a good Irish family. And they had really great food and a really homey feel. So that was my next job after I had to, eat my humble pie and walk out of the steakhouse with my head hung. I walked over to Center Street and talked to Noreen Fitzsimmons.
Love it. All right. When you went to culinary school, they teach you the technicalities there, right? Like how to cook. But what's something that you didn't necessarily learn in culinary school? You learned more like on the job training.
One story I can remember is how to cook fish. So not putting things into a cold pan is key, obviously, right? But we had a French flat top at Cafe Centro, and I was cooking salmon for a party. So it was like, 24 pieces, whatever it was, with the skin on. And I didn't dry the skin before I seasoned it, and I didn't put it into a hot pan, and all of it stuck. I was just mortified. I was still a new cook.
Yeah.
Frank came over. He's like, don't touch it. Touch it. He said, now you have to let it crisp up in order to let it relieve itself from the pan. It'll happen eventually.
Trust the process.
You got to trust the process. So that's one thing they'll never teach you in school. And also, there's no way they can turn school atmosphere into the pressure cooker that the kitchen actually is.
Totally.
Right?
When you have servers coming in.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. The noise of everything, the fryers going, saute, the oven. And that's the other thing. Like, I'm partially deaf now because of the fan behind me and just all the noises all the time.
Yeah.
I find myself just cupping my ear anytime somebody's talking to me from over 4 feet away.
Wow.
I'm like, huh? Not the hearing of a 44-year-old man, I'll tell you that.
You're funny, Jamie Knott. All right, don't go anywhere. We have to go to commercial break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970. The Answer.
Welcome back. I'm back with Chef Jamie Knott, who has a bustling restaurant empire in New Jersey. Jamie is my featured chef tonight, kicking off the series of chef-focused shows that I'll be hosting over the next couple of weeks. So, Jamie, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's talk about the Jamie Knott empire, right? Because before the break, we talked about the early days, the things you've learned, but we got to get to the crux of this here and talk about all of the restaurants you have in New Jersey. So congratulations for that, because that's a big deal.
Thank you.
4 places is a
that.
Big deal. And I know it's not even the end for you. You have so many exciting things in store, but you do seem to get an itch. You know, if we go back to the timeline of Jamie Knott, every few years you open a new concept. How do you decide when it's time to open something new?
I really don't. I think opportunities kind of just present themselves and come to me. I'm pretty faithful in that regard where, I trust that the gods will send me what I need to take the next step in my life and my career. And speaking of which, we're working on a new concept.
Are you going to tell me about it?
Yes, it's going to be a steakhouse-ish. It's in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey.
Ooh, bougie.
Yeah, we have signed the lease. We have demoed the space. We are currently deciding on an architect and a designer. So that's where we're at. I'm going to say March of 26.
March of 26.
Yeah, 3/11 is the date I put on the calendar.
Okay,
I don't know why. It just
yeah,
happens
that's
to
the
be
goal
that
then.
way.
3/11, open
That's
by 3/11.
what it is. My email's Jamie Knott 311 at Yahoo. My son was born in room 311 at 3:11 a.m.
Okay,
I
so
don't know why.
it is.
Just, so this is...
All right, so why is it a steakhouse-ish? What's the other flair that's going to be?
I love seafood.
Uh-huh.
I love crudos.
Yeah.
I love raw bar. I love,
Me too. That's
all
my
the
favorite.
things that come with seafood. So I don't want people to just think like, they can't come out for lunch or bring their kids or, generally steakhouse has the connotation of expensive, exclusive, all those words where some items might be, but that's not what we are. We're kind
You'll
of
have something for everybody.
You took the words right out of my
I
mouth.
love that. Do you have a name for this new concept yet?
We're kicking some stuff around, but I'm not at the point where I'm ready to say it.
Okay. Listen, balancing multiple establishments can be demanding. What strategies do you employ to maintain quality and consistency across all of your endeavors?
I mean, hiring the right people and overpaying them slightly, I think, is the real key.
I think that's probably
take a little
the best
less
part.
from a few more, and you'll have enough at the end. I mean, that's kind of.
I would love to sit through an interview process with Jamie Knott.
Would you?
I feel like it would go all over the place.
It's funny because we have a lot of employees at this point.
Yeah. How many do you think, approximately, between the 4 places?
118, maybe something
Wow.
like that. But what I was going to say is some of my employees are like really intimidated by me, and others are just like, they think I'm a teddy bear. It's really interesting to see the dichotomy on how each person is and how you interact with them because everybody has a different personality.
Yep.
Of course, there's a set of standards and there's operating procedures, and everybody has to follow, those and what they do and act correctly and play the part and represent themselves and us well. But there's differences, there's nuances, I'll say, in each personality.
So you're hiring the GM.
Well, I have a partner who's also the
you do?
chief operating officer, yes. So we hired Peter Arnone last year, who was our opening general manager at Cellar 335.
Okay.
He came back to the company, and we hired him as a partner and COO. So at this point, he kind of laid down the law in every place, and it's just been unbelievable. It's just such a difference.
Yeah, it's more tailored.
It's just everybody knows who, where, what, and when. They know where they get off, who they answer to, how they respond, and that they're going to be held accountable.
The chain of command.
Yeah, it was challenging, honestly. My business partner, Robert Palmer, and I have separate business ventures as well. So, our time gets taken and spread out. And then he's kind of like the nice guy. And I'm kind of like, when I'm there, I'll take care of it. But how often can I be there if there's so many theirs?
That's true.
That's the challenge. And then you have kids, and then you throw sports into it, and then dance and cheer, and,
Yeah, kids are the game changer. I mean, that's kind of why I stopped working in restaurants is when, I worked until like the week before my son was born. Like, I just, how do you do both, like as a mom? Like, how do you miss like tucking the kids in at night or going to sports when you have to close the restaurant and then go back and open the next day? So
thank God you have that ability to change that in your life, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody does, and it becomes a real challenge. You know?
There's nothing like the restaurant business, so I
There's
certainly do
nothing
miss it.
like it, and then it puts a huge strain on your marriage, right? Because my wife's whole life is in the day, and my whole life is in the night.
Right.
So,
and then you're like two ships passing.
That's what it is.
Right.
And where do you find time for each other and to keep that at the highest point? It's
a challenge, and it's the same story throughout the industry. Like people have these challenges. But you also have a podcast. You do a podcast yourself called Chopped Meat. Tell me about it. I'm going to have to start to listen to it.
MEAT. I was the first guest on it. Phil Santos started it, and he had me on. And at the end, he was like, "Just makes sense now. I think you're the guy. You could be the co-host." And we filmed
because you do like to talk.
And this is me without any caffeine.
I know. We did talk about that also.
I'm water only right now. Yes, I used to have a love affair in caffeine. We'll get back to that, but So the podcast started kind of on a whim by accident, which is kind of how everything in my life seems to happen. Somebody's got a plan somewhere for me. I'm not sure why I'm highly favored and so blessed, but I'm going to run with it. I'm going to stick to what I know. So Phil started it, had me on. It went great, and then we went from there, and we filmed 28 episodes.
Wow.
And
where can people listen to it?
We haven't filmed YouTube.
YouTube?
Yep. And Spotify. We're on all those places, but we filmed our last episode July 8th or 9th, I think. We had a pretty big guest on, Wes Watson. We filmed down in Miami on location.
Oh, very nice.
And it got a lot of traction.
Yeah.
But that was our last episode that we filmed. Phil and I still remain very close friends. We're going out to dinner on Wednesday, actually to Sushi by Sea. Shout out, Jay.
Best you're not going to go to Fly Fish Club?
Best sushi in New Jersey. I went to Fly Fish twice last week, so...
Stop bragging.
I don't think I should go again this week. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, shout out Josh. Josh Capon's the man. He actually split a bowl of pasta for us at the table and sat down and
Pete
finished
Wilson told me that.
It was hysterical.
That's amazing.
It was really funny. But the podcast did well. It was amazing for me. Cathartic experience, really. I got to know a lot about myself. You don't know really who you are until you watch it back on camera, and then you're like, wow, I really don't change much, do I? But I have some interesting things to say.
Yeah.
And it touched a lot of people, and I was shocked by it. I mean, people stopped me. They're like,
that's great.
When are you refilming? So,
do you have, any idea if you're going to pick up and
Phil started to film again on his own. So I think he has 3 episodes in the bag. But he's focused more on real estate and salons and coaching.
Then I have an idea. You should be a guest host on Culinary Confidential every few weeks.
It would be my
Wouldn't
pleasure.
That be fun? And you could bring on like some chefs or whatever.
It would be my pleasure and honor. It would just be hard to let people get their turn to speak, especially if I hop back on the caffeine.
No, we won't let you do that.
No.
I do have a question about why did you decide to build your restaurant brand like on this side of the Hudson, like in New Jersey rather than New York?
I mean, the answer is very simple. We wanted to have a family.
Yeah.
And I just think that once you come through the tunnel or go over that bridge, that challenge becomes insurmountable. And the amount of time you spend, you know as well as I do, the amount of time you spend at a restaurant, especially back of the house, respectfully, front of the house, management will spend a lot of time there, but back of house is like, they live there, right?
Totally.
There's almost no comparison in some restaurants to hourly staffs in front and back.
Yeah. All right. I get it. All right, Jamie, we're going to go to our last commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970, The Answer.
Okay, we're back. I'm back with Chef Jamie Knott for the Spotlight on the Chef series that I'll be doing over the next few weeks. Chef, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to touch on one thing you kind of breezed over before you invited me back in to be your co-host. Just be careful what you ask for. Because...
Wow, you don't forget a thing. I mean, I know it's only been 30 seconds, but clearly...
We were on commercial for 1 minute. You thought I would forget that? No, I would love to do that, number one. And number two, I would love to bring some friends if possible.
I mean, that is if you can fit the show into your busy schedule.
Come on. I've done it once. I can do it again.
That's true. You know, you have a lot of good relationships with chefs in New Jersey. Like you have this like little band of brothers. I had Antonio D'Aeso from Fiorentini on the show with
did?
Antonio Dinis from Porto in North Bergen. They did a show together back in December, A Tale of Two Antonios.
I didn't know that.
Listen to that
How
show.
did I not know that? I was in Portugal with Antonio.
Were you?
Yeah, and then we did a chef's table at Fiorentini with the other Antonio. None of them mentioned it to me. That's interesting.
So funny. No, so you know Antonio Dinis, his wife Luciana?
Yes.
Her and I went to high school together.
Small
And
world.
Antonio and Luciana, they dated in high school, so they've been together forever. So I've known them
that's
both.
funny.
And Antonio worked for me at Tavern on the Green.
Really? Now I
Yes.
know why you featured him on the show. Now it makes sense because he's not that interesting in real life.
He was lovely.
I had to take a shot. No, he's
shots
the
fired.
Best. No, he's the best.
Wait, so what's going on over in Portugal? Because I see you guys are always in Portugal. You have some kind of culinary venture going on over there?
Well, they're all Portuguese. I'm like
Right.
the odd man out.
The Irish,
Yeah.
the Irish
I'm
lad on the trip.
I'm the lad on the trip, but this one was a mastermind. Phil's doing some coaching, and he wanted to show everybody how to pick up real estate, how to get dual citizenship, what financing looks like over there. And it was kind of just a boys' trip.
Yeah.
We went to wineries, ATVing.
Sounds terrible.
We went by his mom's house, grandmother's house, like where he grew up.
That's
We went to
nice.
olive vineyards. It was a great time. And then we went down to Porto, and partner of mine, Drew O'Brien, we have a clothing company called Sunday Sauce, which is going to drop June 15th. That nobody really knows about yet, but
You know what? Maybe if you were a sponsor on the show, people would know more about it.
let me use the negative money we have and pay for a sponsorship on the
Yes.
show. That sounds fiscally responsible if I've ever heard an idea.
Yeah, we'll
But
see what we can do.
we're going to work it out for sure. So we went down to Porto and we visited the manufacturers who are going to make our clothing.
That's
So
awesome.
It was a lot of fun. Great trip.
What do you think is the biggest trend in the culinary world right now?
Oh my God. What not to do? Put caviar on everything.
That's actually, I think it was Food and Wine or someone said 2025, putting interesting toppings on food is a global trend. So caviar and chicken nuggets was the first thing that came up.
That's kind of what happened, right? And then
Yeah.
everybody put caviar on everything.
Or those caviar bumps. You see people doing the caviar bumps?
We
at,
do caviar bumps, so we do a lot of catering. We do a lot of private events at people's homes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we'll do caviar bumps. That's kind of an option that we have for them. Everybody likes it. It's fun. It's kind of a show. But back to what you were saying is people put interesting things on food. You're absolutely right. I've always put like crushed up Pringles or Doritos or, make pretzels part of a crab cake crumb or, something like that. I love that kind of stuff. I'm into that big time.
Okay. And apparently so is the rest of the world. Okay, so we didn't really get to talk too much yet about the specifics of each of your restaurants. So the Saddle River Inn, that's probably your most well-known venture because it's been around the longest.
Right. It's my baby.
That's your baby.
Yeah,
Tell me
that's
about
my childhood dream. I mean, it's
opening that and like what you're doing there.
I mean, it's, a barn built in 1771 on the Saddle River. When you go in there, you feel special. It's different. It's unique. It has its own vibe. It has its own energy.
Yeah.
And I still pinch myself when I walk in the front door. It's really,
that's
it's just a
amazing.
special place, and it's, my
And
childhood
it's always
dream.
busy. I tried to make a reservation there
Thank
for
God.
in 3 weeks and I couldn't.
3 weeks?
Fully committed.
Fully. I've heard that one before.
So
At least the food's fresh.
Yeah.
It is a busy restaurant, thank God. We've built this thing. I don't know how to explain it, but it's become its own entity. And, people always joke around like, do you even really have a restaurant there? Or does somebody answer the phone and just tell us no all the time?
that's so funny.
Well, that's kind of how Rayo's built their
right.
Rayo's empire, right? Is Frankie no? You call
You've
and
been
ask
to
for a
Rayo's, right?
reservation. I have. And they just tell you no. So, yes, the inn is started out as a fine dining French restaurant. I was working with a realtor. While I was in the city, I was a corporate chef at BLT Group.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I looked around for 3 or 4 years. I knew I was ready to branch out on my own. And I knew how to read a P&L, and I always saw that, there was a lot of money to the bottom line if you do it right, which is the key to success. So that was a big blessing in my career, was learning the finances of the business.
That's funny because Antonio Dennis said the same thing. He was like, I knew how to do the cooking part, but I didn't know how to do the office part, like learning how taxes work and things like that. And he had to bring an investor into
I knew he wasn't paying taxes.
A consultant into his business to really kind of
He's
teach him
going to hate
those
me
things.
after this episode.
We're not even going to tell him about it. I might
gonna...
have texted him last week and said, I'm having Jamie Knott on the show.
That's so funny. Not that he's going to listen to this episode.
He's going to listen.
Listen, he breaks my balls endlessly, pardon the expression. So, it's my turn to get back at him now.
I love it. All right, outside of what you're doing in New Jersey, what do you think about the dining scene over there?
I think it's come such a long way. There's amazing chefs, South Jersey. I'm not going to say Middle Jersey, but, all the way up north. There's just so many guys now who really care about their craft, and they're just doing it so well, There's so much pride and heart, and they care about where they get their food from and how they prepare it, and I can't say enough good about New Jersey. I think it's really under-recognized. I think Michelin needs to take another look at the state and really give us a chance because we're here.
And we're not going anywhere. Yeah, it's so true.
There she is finishing my sentences again.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
She's really selling me on this co-host deal, as you guys can hear.
You're like peanut butter and jelly on the air.
That's the name of my hospitality company, right?
I had no idea.
Yeah, so we
It's
formed...
what, peanut butter and jelly?
Well, we formed it very recently. It's called PB&J Hospitality.
It's
that. Peter, Bob, and Jamie. It just happens to be peanut butter and jelly.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's the most classic of all the American dishes you can get, right? So it worked out. Again, one of those things in my life that kind of just works itself out.
Sometimes it's about not forcing things, just letting things organically happen the way they're supposed to happen.
I would say most of the time it is.
You were the chef honoree at Table to Table's 25th anniversary Chef's Gala.
I still can't believe that, but yeah.
That's amazing.
Apparently it's well documented.
I mean, you've been on the cover of New Jersey Monthly Magazine.
I have.
You're a big deal.
I'd say I'm a medium deal.
A medium deal.
Medium rare.
Hey, I got a question for you. Speaking of medium, we got to go back to this anniversary Chef's Gala. But speaking of medium rare, what do you think about, because you're going to open in the steakhouse, when people order things, a steak, medium plus?
People come to eat, we come to cook. You can have whatever you want.
But is medium plus a temperature in the kitchen?
It's 1 degree, technically. Right? 1.5 degrees.
I'm only asking because my dad listens every Sunday night, and he is a medium plus steak guy. And when I worked at the Palm, the servers would come to me and be like, your dad wants medium plus again. What do I do? And I'm like, just put it in medium. And if we got to, fire it up a degree, we will.
Right. Does he send it back?
No, he just kind of cuts into it, looks over at my mom and says, is this okay for me? And she goes,
that's so funny.
And she's like, yeah, it's fine, eat it.
And you guys are, what's your ethnicity?
Irish and Italian.
Okay. My grandmother eats a steak like the bottom of her shoe. This is what she tells the server. She goes out on Christmas and her birthday, and she likes Capital Grille. She gets a filet mignon, well done. Make it look like the bottom of my shoe, and I will send it back until it does. Verbatim. That's how I grew up. That's the person who taught me how to cook.
I'm dead.
That's the person who I watched cook in a kitchen. You ever seen a green bean turn into a bowl of green mush?
Oh, my goodness.
Come by my mom's house. She'll show you how it's done. But listen,
fantastic.
Her food's delicious. It's just the way, it's how she chooses to eat,
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their preferences.
Therefore,
and
she
the
never
Irish
made
cuisine
steak
is
when I
not
was a
known
kid.
for...
There's no such thing as Irish cuisine.
Yeah.
That's what it is, yeah.
Just
Potato
a bunch of potatoes.
family. That's the only thing people do is... Yeah, whiskey and potatoes. If it wasn't for whiskey, the Irish would have taken over the world 500 years ago.
Oh, my gosh. All right, I don't want to lose track of this because this was a big deal, the Table to Table 25th Anniversary Chef's Gala. How do you view the role of chefs and restaurateurs in addressing food insecurity and supporting local communities?
I mean, it's huge. I sit on the board of directors at Table to Table, and we do these large events, 4 or 5 times a year. The gala, the golf outing, which the gala I have to go back to. I have to give props to Joey Mazza. So the idea was 18 chefs cooking for tables live inside the gala in the venue, and that's what happened. So each chef did a 4-course tasting while you're watching, right? Because the front and the back of the house are never together, and this was something we wanted to touch on before. And all the chefs got to see how the guests acted and reacted to their food and watch them cook, which is the most fun part, right?
Yeah.
Which is never on display unless you have an open kitchen. And the other part of it was the chef got to watch the guest. and see how they enjoyed everything that they just did, all that prep work that went into it, all the leg work. It makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
There's something about a restaurant, to me, which I always felt, you can be a big part of somebody's experience without ever meeting them or knowing them. That feels good.
Yeah.
That fills the spirit, it fills the soul.
It
there's
makes
a
the
bucket.
hard work worth it.
It does. And I love how they bridge the gap between the front and back of house, which to me is very important. And I think
Do you want to talk about that real quick?
I'm sure.
I mean, because for people listening, notorious in restaurants, there's a divide between the front of the house and the back of the house, or some people call the back of the house the heart of the house to make them feel like really good, but they're behind closed doors, so they don't really get to see sometimes a lot of the action that goes on. And it's like the waiters and the cooks, like there's sometimes some sparring that happens. And I wonder, does that happen in any of your restaurants?
Well, I've never seen any sparring take place, first and foremost.
Not physical.
Yeah. The gloves stay on. There's no sparring at PB&J Hospitality. We'll just keep it that way. But I know exactly what you mean, and it's a story as old as time, right? The front of house, the back of house, the separation. The truth of the matter is that I think a lot of the front and back get along way more now than they used to, and I know in the city there was a big camaraderie. Because the cooks work a little longer, the servers would buy the cook's drinks.
Totally.
Then you can get whatever you need from any cook at any time, right? There's a way to work around all of it. But I think the most important thing is training, caring, and making people part of.
Right.
Even if it's a quick pre-shift where you say, Jose helped with this special tonight. It's delicious. This is a dish from his family's culture and tradition. Give people a little shine.
Yeah.
It goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Saying thank you goes a long way.
It can be a thankless job, restaurants, especially working in the back of the house where you don't have the direct access to the guest. You don't see them sometimes really enjoying what you prepared. So
Right.
I get it.
And a lot of times there's no real feedback unless it's negative, which is super hard to take, right?
Yeah.
So then you're always on the edge. Somebody say something good, please. One thing I found that I do a lot as a practice now is please and thank you. Ever since I had my kids, if I want them to be the way I want to be or should be, I just have to act as if. And please and thank you go a long way. Even if you say it, thank you, chef. It's one of those things you can put emphasis on it. And, yes, chef is another one of those things, right? How many ways can you say yes, chef? You can mean so many things, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I use it. I use it all the time, all day, even out on the street. People just look at me like, who is this guy?
Chef, I really loved this hour that we did together.
It's been an hour already?
It's been an hour already. We've come to the end, but this is not the end for you and I. You're coming back on the show.
Yes, I am.
You're coming back and you're bringing people, and this is going to be great.
Thank
you for listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. on AM 970 The Answer. Big thanks to Chef Jamie Knott for coming in studio tonight and sharing with us his incredible culinary journey. Check out Jamie's restaurants, the Saddle River Inn and the Saddle River Cafe, both in Saddle River, and Madame and Cellar 335 in Jersey City. Tune in next week as I continue the Spotlight on Chef series. The next featured chef is Chef Coton Stein, owner of Table 165 in Delray Beach, Florida. Chef Coton is locally renowned for her culinary skills and high standards of creating whimsical, locally sourced dishes within her community. Her career started in Las Vegas and quickly ventured back to South Florida roots as a private chef on Palm Beach Island. She's very interesting, and I can't wait to talk to her. So that's the show tonight. Thanks for listening, and have a great night.
The preceding program is sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.